would they sell you $100,000 property for 80,000 or 70,000? My answer is I don't know. I really don't know. I go out there and I stumbled upon people, and then I asked them too because I'm curious too. I'm like, hey, excuse me, this house is worth 100,000, right? And they say, yeah, I do. I know. And my neighbor sold for 110, 105. I said, so why would you sell it to me for 75 or 80?
Real estate, find you the best rate. All throughout Philly, like Schuylkill Expressway. Talking to people who out of the
Hello, everyone. This is John Lee, your local real estate agent in the greater Philadelphia area. I'm here with my boy Dave Tran, a local investor, someone who actually I look up to and also admire, and very, very special guest here. Dave, if you can give a brief introduction to our audience, a little bit about yourself and what you got going on.
Hey, John, man, thanks for having me today. I appreciate it. Well, a little bit about me is I've been doing real estate for over 2 decades. I started, I graduated as a computer engineer from Drexel. And right after that, I had three co-ops. After going back to my jobs, I wasn't able to find a job. And what I learned was that the people I worked with that's been doing engineering for 20 something plus years were laid off before the pension kicked in. And that really shocked me because when I was younger, I didn't know that something like that could be taken away from you. Um, so it just kind of made me aware that, wow, this world isn't the way I thought it was. I could be working my entire life. And then, I remember one guy, his name was Patrick. He kept talking about 3 more years. And I'm gonna leave it to you young guys. And right before that, I don't think he ever got what he thought he was gonna get. He wasn't able to retire at the beach or anything. I think he's probably still working today.
Mhm.
So things like that happened to me woke me up, right? And so when I came out, all I know was I couldn't find a job. It was 2004. I couldn't find a job because the economy was down and there wasn't much of a need of engineering. There was war going on and stuff like that. That was the year that like we saw on TV like a live decapitation,
Right.
and they asked me if I wanted to go work in that, over there. They would pay me 3 times the amount. I remember that year. I'm like, oh no, I'm
Oh
good.
my
You know,
God.
it was crazy. So,
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
the only way I could get a job at the time was to relocate, and I'm the
Yeah.
oldest of my family. I had to take care of my family. That's how my culture is. So I couldn't move. And then from there, I got into real estate because my uncle asked me, did I want to do real estate? And at that point, remember, I was 24, right? No, I wasn't 24. I was younger than 24. It was 2004. I forgot how old I was, but when I came out, I didn't even know what real estate was.
Yeah.
I asked him, what is real estate? And he was like, houses. And then from there, the first thing I thought of was, let me go learn what this is. And I took a crash course, become a real estate agent in Kensington, right? And I was like, yo, this, I could just learn this in 2 months or whatever, and I'm good. And I remember taking that course, and I remember the last day when the broker asked everyone to raise their hand, like, who's going to work for a brokerage? And everyone raised their hand except two guys. And these two guys, they were Asian. They look like computer nerds, right?
Yeah.
They looked smart to me, right? And because I'm a computer engineer, I know the smart guys. I know what they look like. And the teacher didn't have any interest in any of the people that want to be realtors, but he had a lot of interest in the investors. Those two guys were investors. And at that point, I made my decision. I'm like, I want to do what they do. And I remember coming home, talking to my uncle, and he was like, yo, let's go open up real estate offices and people could work for you. And I'm like, it's not like that. I can't just open up pop shop. And
Yeah.
and he was like, why not? And I'm like, you got to work for people for 2 years, X amount of hours, and this and that. And he was like, oh, I didn't know. And I was like, yeah, well, it's not like what you think. So he's like, what do you want to do now? You know, get a job? I was like, nah, I want to be an investor. And I remember my uncle asking me, he was like, oh, you want to be an investor? You know what that is? And I looked at him. No. He was like, what? You don't know what an investor is? I'm like, no. And he was like, so wait, he's like, you lost me. He's like, if you don't know what an investor is, then why do you want to be an investor? I said, well, those guys look smart. So whatever they're doing, that's what I want to do. I don't want to be like everyone else. Right. And he was like, that that kind of makes sense. And then I said, you know what an investor is? He was like, yeah, I do. Like someone that buys and fix houses and flips them. That's flipping. That's not investing. But that's how he described it to me. And then at that moment, I remember, all right, like naive, no life experience. I was like, yo, is it that guy? Like that name that we see everywhere. Like I go to Atlantic City every year. I see this name everywhere. Like, what was it again? Trump. Is it like Donald Trump? And he was like, yeah, but they do hotels and casinos. And that's the idea. That's
Yeah,
the idea,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
and at that point, I was just like, David Tran, Donald Trump, David Tran, Donald Trump, DT. If he could do it, I could do it. Yo, that's how I got started.
Okay. So let's backtrack a little bit there because I think a lot of beginners, even for me, right, they think that being a realtor is synonymous as being a real estate investor, right? They think almost that the two are the same. So let's unpack that a little bit together
Right,
because it's
right.
kind of like I find that ironically that you can be a realtor and not own your own home. You know what I mean? Like you can be in an apartment and be a realtor, you know? You can sell 6,000 houses in 1 year and still not own an investment property, right? And vice
Yep.
versa. You can own 6,000 investment properties and you're not a realtor. So at what point did you make that realization, like the differences between the two? And then also, Dave, for our audience, can you explain what the differences are, if that makes any sense?
Well, I'm not sure I'm the most technical person because I was never a good realtor. I became a realtor later to sell my own properties.
Hmm.
Um, but the difference to me is, you know, one, if I'm an investor, the first thing is I'm building myself up in I'm serving myself. I would say that's the clearest indication. Like I'm serving myself as a realtor. I'm serving others, right? Of course, I can serve others like tenants and stuff, being an investor, but the main focus is like I was just focusing on me, right? And in terms of being a realtor, like there's laws and rules. There's a lot of things you have to learn. There's structure. You're showing houses, you're selling homes for other people. In terms of investing, it's all about taking your money or someone's money and learning how to make a profit out of it in simplest form, you
Right.
know? So kind of like for me, it's like buy low, sell high. That's a business, you know? Um, Something like a small business. That's how I operate. I always wanted more control of and understanding what I was going to do later on. So I always start with the end in mind of how I imagine myself to be, because when I'm 70 years old, what am I going to do? Am I going to be showing houses, or do I want to have my own houses? And because I have clarity of that, I'm like, oh, I should be an investor. And the sooner I start, the better. So yeah, that hopefully that answered your question.
No, it does because I think a lot of the times people ask me like, John, I want to do, I want to do what you do. I want to have investment properties. Um, uh, how do I get my real estate license? And the first thing that I tell them is like, why do you want to get your real estate license? Because in most cases, we have people in our community that don't even have real estate licenses, and they do well above, they have way more units than I do, right? They're running more deals than I'm doing, or even what you would be doing. So I think I think getting the license, the real estate license helps, but I think just
But sure.
being the investor doesn't mean that you have to be licensed, right? And then also, if you have a license, it doesn't mean that you're also an investor. So I think those are the two differences that I wanted to like share to our audience. And I think you made a really, really good point. So to segue into the next question, I mean, you have a very interesting story, right? So obviously you went, you went, to get your license. You thought your license might have been one thing, but then you realized you wanted to be an investor, right? What was your first experience? Because I remember you were doing a lot of door knocking. You were, doing all various types of things to get a deal. So, how could you encourage someone who wants to start, or what's your story so that you can encourage someone else?
Okay, so when I started, I realized that I have like tunnel vision. When I see something that I want, I go after it. I I'm the type of person that takes action first and then figure it out later.
Right.
Um, I never realized that not everyone's like that, you know. Um, I mean, I realized today. And because of that, I've done a lot of things that I didn't know I couldn't do. I don't know the rules. Like there's no rules for me, like you said, someone's like, "Oh, I should be a realtor first." I didn't know that. In my mind, remember, right? Um, I was like 20 something years old, right? Um, in my mind, it was just like when I found out that I can buy real estate and sell it, my first thing was, how do I find a property and where should I buy? So I found out my uncle buy real estate. So I asked him, hey, what area do you want to buy? And he was just like, you're not gonna find any good deals. He's like, you should just go get a job, save up for a couple years, and then start investing. I said, no, I don't want to do that. And he said, no, trust me. And he owns a lot of real estate at the time, which I didn't know. But I didn't listen to him because I said, why would I waste any more time doing something else that I don't want to do instead of being on track and learn what I need to do? Because it's going to take the same amount of time anyways.
Hmm.
I'm an engineer, so I'm efficient with my time. I don't like to waste time. I like to go straight at it. So he was like, okay, well, let me ask you a question. How would you get started if you have no money? And I said, I don't know. Great question. Now that you propose a question to me, I'll figure it out. And as soon as he asked me that question, something popped in my head. Oh yeah, when I used to go bowling at night, I saw these infomercials on channel 17 at 2 a.m. How to buy properties with no money down.
Mm.
And he was like, Dave, if you don't need any money to buy houses, wouldn't everyone buy real estate? And I was just like, that's a great question. I don't know. But if it's on TV, national television, like if they lied, wouldn't they be sued left and right? See, I didn't have the answers, but what I did was I kept looking deeper because I was curious. I was always curious. And I believe that the answer is there. It's just that I don't know what it looks like.
Right,
Right.
right.
And so he posed good questions. I posed good questions. And then next thing you know, he says something like, oh, yeah, I bought one of those courses, by the way. I said, you did? Yo, why didn't you let me know? And he was like, well, I don't know. I have this course. It's somewhere in the basement somewhere. I said, yo, go find it and let me look into it. So I got started with that. And then I waited for the infomercial to come back up. I waited 2 weeks for that infomercial to pop back up. I stayed up at night and then I ended up going to the seminar, right? And these people said exactly what what I was going through in my life. People don't believe in it. Your family's gonna say, don't do it, get a job, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, do you guys know? You speaking to me, and we're
Yeah.
gonna hold you step by step. And it was like $20,000. But today, if you act, it was 5 grand. I didn't have the money in 2004. And so when I came back and asked my dad, I realized that my dad didn't have any money in his savings either because college was expensive and they gave their all to support me. And he was just like, why don't you just become an engineer? You went to school for 5 years, and you graduated. Why don't you just do that first? I was like, nah, it's a waste of time. Like it's a waste of time. It's not what you think it is, And from there, what I did was I figured maybe there's a book on that guy, Robert Allen, right? That's who the infomercial was, Robert Allen,
Okay. I was
right?
gonna ask you that.
Yeah, and then I went to the UPenn bookstore and I went to look for Robert Allen. He has a book, right? And dude, it was not $5,000. And I was just like, yo, that's like, I don't know, 20 bucks or 30 bucks. And I was like, I can afford this. So what I did was I started reading that book and I found out that I didn't understand a thing in that book. I didn't know what a mortgage was. I didn't know what a loan was. I didn't know I didn't know anything, right? So as I read that, sorry for all the kids in the background. I got twins and everything.
It's
But
all
yeah.
good, bro.
So so I just what I did was I just kept reading that book. I read that book and I read 19 other books with the title How to Get Started in Real Estate Investing. So I spent like 9 months reading the same type of books. And every time I read books, what I did was I wrote down questions like, what is a mortgage? What is this? What is that? What is a county courthouse and all that stuff? I wrote down all these questions. After 20 books, the same questions start popping up. At that point, I ran into my uncle again, and he was like, look, you got to wake up and get a job. And at that time, right, I didn't check my email, my Yahoo account back then, use Yahoo. I didn't check my account for 9 months. So I didn't even know that I had like 1,000 emails says like, I have a job offer. And what I did, I select all, I delete everything. I didn't want to be
Okay.
distracted
Yeah, yeah,
and I just told him I couldn't find no job. I'm going all in.
right.
And the first thing I remember the first time he pointed out a property at Temple University. That was the first property I bought. He parked. He's like, you got to snap out of this. You got to wake up. And I said, look, man, why don't you just, what do you want me to do? That's what I want to do. He's like, all right, let me just stop this right now. Okay, you see that property right there? He parks and he's like, I'll buy that property for $75,000 cash. What are you going to do? And I'm just like, I don't know. I got to go look at my notes. And I say, so that's the property you want? You want to pay 75,000? Okay. Okay, let me go figure it out. I went home. First thing I said was go to the county courthouse. In my head, with no experience, I had concepts when I read that book, right? My first thing that came to my head was county courthouse. Then I got to find a judge. I got to find a judge.
Damn.
So, so the first thing that I did was I looked at Young. So I wore a suit and I thought about Center City. I went to Center City, near the orange line where people were coming out the train. As people was coming out the train, I used to shake their hand and said, "Excuse me, sir. Excuse me, ma'am. Can you direct me to the judge? Can you direct me to the judge?"
Oh my God.
Yeah, seriously. That's how little I knew. And people were just coming out the train like, no, 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 I don't know no judge. And then out of nowhere, a security guard out of City Hall said, came over to me like, "What are you doing here?" And I was like, I'm looking for a judge. Can you hear me? Now
Yeah,
they're back in the back. All right. So
yeah,
I,
yeah, yeah.
I was like, can you direct me to the judge? And he said, okay, which one? And I was like, wow, that's a good question. The one that controls the entire real estate of Philadelphia. He was like, what? What are you talking about? And I was like, look, I'm just trying to find the owner of abandoned property. And I was wondering if I could find a judge that can help me figure out who the owner is. He's like, you don't need to do that. You just go to like the recorder's office. I think it was like room 101 or 111, right? And I walked down there and I stumbled upon someone that was looking at those green computers. Back then, all the computers were green, like DOS and everything.
Yeah.
And he typed it in, and then it popped up, and like the taxes were going to the people's house. He's like, and like he told me that he lived in South Philly. There was abandoned property across the street, and he was hoping to strike a deal with the owner to see if he could buy it. I'm like, dude, that's exactly what I'm trying to do. And so, what I'm trying to share is that I took step by step, not knowing, and have complete faith that I'm going to find the answers. And along the way, everything started to unfold for me. And eventually, um, I saw the I saw the address to that property, And I realized it was like 5 blocks away. I'm like, sweet. I'm just gonna drive to the guy's house and knock on the door and make an offer, right? I hope it's the owner. That's my best bet. So I took my dad's car, drove there right away. It was like 3:30 p.m. broad daylight. Right in front of the house, when I'm about to reach the corner, it was like to the left. It was a corner house. 5 guys circled my car. And back then, everyone was wearing those puffy Nautica jackets. One of the guys put out a gun
Oh
and
God.
tapped my windshield. And I was like, wow, what do I do? Like, it's like daylight, dude. Like, you're robbing me in daylight. And I rolled down the window and I had a gun straight to my head. And he was like, "What are you doing in the neighborhood? You're in the wrong freaking neighborhood." I'm like, "No, no, I'm not." He's like, "What you say?" And I had my gun to my head, and I was like, I'm looking for Jason over there." The guy's name, I still remember the dude's name, Jason. I'm looking for Jason over there. Right? He lives right there. Like, I'm looking at it. He's like, "You know Jason?" I'm like, "Yes, I do." And at that moment, he looked at me for a while and he put the gun away. He told his thugs, his guys that stop surrounding my car. And he's like, "Come back in 30 minutes. We're doing some business." We already know he was selling drugs. You know what I mean? So I was like, "No, can I be quick?" Because I didn't want to go back, dude. I just want to leave my phone number and run away because I was scared. My legs were trembling. My hands were trembling. So I just left David Tran my cell phone number and I left it there. Dude called me back around 2 hours later, and I was able to see that property. And if you want to hear the rest of the story, when I went into that property, there was no back wall, there was a tree growing out of it, and there was no roof. And my uncle was like, "We'll buy it." And the guy was like, I was like, "How much you want it for it?" My uncle said 75, you'll pay for it. The guy was like, 65. And I'm like, "No way." I'm like, "No way." Because I don't even know what the heck this is. This is not a property, right? And I asked my uncle, "Hey, how much can this area rent for?" Because I read all these books. It's got a cash flow, blah, blah, blah. You got to refinance and all that stuff. I have all these terminologies I was learning, right?
Yeah.
And my uncle's like, "I don't know." I'm like, "You don't know how much the rent goes for?" He's like, "I don't know." So I asked the owner, "Hey, how much can this area rent for?" He was like, "I don't know." And I'm like, no one knows? Then where do these prices come from? Like, how do you say this is worth 65 grand? And he was like, and then so for me, I did my research. I looked up a 3 block by 3 block radius, old school way. I wrote down all the addresses and how much everything sold for in what year. So I said, if you can find any property within a 3 block by 3 block radius that sold, because my uncle told me that it was going to take 150,000 to fix it. I said, if you can find any house that sold for the rehab cost is 150, 130 to 150, but I'll use the 150 number. Plus your 65, so I'll use the lower number. So if it's $200,000, I'll pay for it. Find one. But if you can't find it, I'm not buying it because I might be paying too much. And I said, this is a non-conforming collateral. I have to fix it up, put cash into it, find it, and then I got to figure out who's going to live here. I don't even know what that is, and hopefully I can refinance out. And from that, the guy was like, "Yo, you know what you're talking about, huh, kid? I just went to the bank 2 weeks ago." And he said, they said the same thing you just said, that non-conforming collateral thing. I was like, oh my God, all these books are paying off. All these books are paying off. You know what I mean? And then he was like, "Do you know what I do for a living?" I said, "No, sir." And he was like, "I'm a contractor. Do you know how much it would cost me to fix this up?" I was like, man, probably cheaper than 130 to 150,000. I'm guessing, right? He was like, "No, 170,000." He was like, "How the freak are you guys doing it cheaper than me if I'm to do it with my own hands?" And he asked for my uncle's phone number. And that's when I realized that, oh, my construction costs are cheaper than everyone else's. Even, and I was just like, oh, I didn't even know that. And then they connected. And from there, you know, I end up getting the property for $46,000 after my uncle said that there's no way I can buy for 75. And from that, we fixed it up. I figured out how to rent it. What I did to rent those apartments was Temple University was a block away. During orientation, there was like thousands of people out there. I made a flyer. I put it on my shirt. I safety pinned it to my shirt, said for rent on me. And I had a book bag full of flyers and I went around passing out flyers. Anyone looking for rent? And I'm just like, anyone looking for bedrooms or, you haven't rented a place yet? Yo, I got you. I got you. Come on, come on. And I'm just like out there, I guess, hustling. You know what I mean?
Just hustling out flyers. You had it literally pinned to your
Yeah,
shirt.
yeah. I did have a pin to my shirt and in the back of my book bag. And what I also did, which I found out was like illegal, was I had those like, the phone numbers. I stuck it all across the orange line coming up. So when people came up,
Yeah,
they saw the flyers. So out of that, I guess that couple hours, I got 5, 6 phone calls and I got people collecting my flyers and I bundled them all together and I rented out the units. And then I rented the first floor to a hair salon. And
yeah.
that was my first deal. And it appraised at 375. We were able to get out 220 something thousand. And I was generating like what 1800, 1800 and 1700. So do the math, like is it 5300, I think,
Yeah,
or 40? Yeah.
yeah.
So it paid at 375, 6% interest rate. I was cash flowing, whatever. So I think I was making like 60% return a year.
That's amazing. On that
Yeah.
was your first. That was your first deal, right?
That was my first deal. I did 9
Yeah,
others like that first year.
yeah, yeah. So, I think for a lot of people, they get really submerged into because you have an academic background as an engineer, right? A lot
Yeah.
of people get submerged into the academics of real estate, right? They want to know the numbers, they want to know the terminology. I think what separates you and a lot of other people is that the first thing that you said is that your tunnel vision, right? Like whether that's good or bad or indifferent, right? You at least took action. So, how do you encourage someone to know enough information, then to apply that information and take action?
I would say that having knowledge doesn't equate to you being able to do anything. I know a lot of real estate lawyers that have been real estate lawyers for 30 plus years and don't own any real estate.
Hmm.
So they always say like wisdom is applied knowledge, right? So a lot of people have knowledge these days and they feel comfortable with knowledge and having that comfort, they believe that it'll take it to the next step. But for me, I didn't know anything. All I know is if Don, look, going back to what I said, if Donald Trump can do it, why can't I do it? Dude, like, I don't get it. Like, that's how simple my mind was. And nothing distracted me. If anything, the more I learn, the more I'm distracted today. Like today, I feel like I'm fully distracted. I got twins screaming in the background. I got wives. I got different businesses I run. I have all these things I always wanted. But back then, it was so simple. I wanted one thing, and I got it. Right away. Come on, get away.
That's so awesome. So, yeah, I mean, your story it resonates with me so well because of what you were able to do, and honestly, I think it's a gift too, Dave. Like the reason I say that is not everyone is willing to continue to get into real estate. Especially, dude, like you got a gun pulled on you, and you're like, hold on, let me still knock on that guy's door though. You know what I mean? Like, if a gun was pulled on me, I would have went the other direction and be like, you know what? Either I'm gonna come back later, or you know what, not. Like even today, right? Just for our listeners. We bumped up our podcast earlier because we were scheduled for one, and I was like, yo, let's just reschedule. And you're like, yo, let's just do it now. And I was like, shit, man, like, am I prepared? Like, how is this podcast gonna turn out? But dude, like, this is a testament to who you are as a person. So like, um, it does show that you're a very special person, but like, what other encouraging things can you say to our listeners, especially those that are afraid or they might have analysis paralysis, if you want to say, or
I
any
would
of those things that are preventing
I
them
would say,
from getting to
yeah,
that next level?
got it. I would say that we all have fears and that it's easier and more fun to do it together with someone. Find yourself a mentor, find someone who's done it before, and then it'll be easier, but it'll still be scary. Everything's scary because it's the first time you ever done something, especially if you think about making a big purchase. Real estate is usually the biggest purchase in your life. So I understand there's a lot of things, a lot of concerns. It's like when you see the loan documents come out and they're like this thick, and it's like, what the freak am I signing? Yeah, I mean, you could hire a lawyer, it makes you feel better, but at the end of the day, I did, right? I still didn't know what was going on. They're like, yeah, these are all normal documents. I'm like, normal? Everyone signed that. I, okay. Like that's what I had to
Yeah.
learn. Like, okay. And then I had to really figure out, I guess if the banks are trying to scam me, like there would be a lot of lawsuits. So I don't think the banks are trying to scam me or do anything shady. I think that they just have all these documents to protect themselves. So I'm gonna pay on time, and I don't think anything's gonna go wrong. If anything goes wrong, all those documents pretty much says I'm gonna give them back their property. I'm pretty sure that's what it says, and a lot of legal jargon. So I kind of just have like a lot of trust in big companies, not small companies now. There's a lot of shady stuff that goes on, but if we're
Right,
talking about Wells Fargo, Bank of America, all these big companies, they've been around for a long time. You can't become big doing shady things.
right, right,
So, I would say working together with friends too. That's another thing, right? When you work together with friends and you're exploring something, it's fun. Like even when you go through tough times, you guys are looking at each other, like, yo, it kind of stung a little bit, but let's do this again. Let's keep it going. For me, I didn't have that luxury. I just did it myself. But I,
Mhm.
I would say that doing it with people and coming to the real estate clubs, right? Meeting like-minded individuals that's starting off and staying connected, being in that environment all the time, being immersed in it, that's super helpful because everyone outside hasn't bought real estate before. And you're usually probably the only one in your family doing something new. And everyone that never done it before is going to talk you out of
Mhm.
it, right? Like my uncle bought real estate and he was talking me out of it. Today, he's consulting me for advice on his real estate, and he's investing his money into me, and he's just asking me like, yo, what should I do? Like I'm looking to retire. And so it's that's what I wanted. When I first came out, I wanted to be the consultant for someone that is retiring versus, me retiring and consulting someone else.
Right, right.
I wanted to be the expert. So today I am in that sense.
Of course, and you've definitely made a big impact in our community, especially like the Asian community, as far as like, contributing to our events, really helping and mentoring people like me and several other people. I guess for a lot of the beginners, because a lot of our listeners are beginners, I think the other roadblock is that you require money, right? Like they think that you require your own money at least to get into deals, right? In this case, in this situation, you didn't come from money, right? So like walk us through that situation of whether it's this deal or another deal on like how you were able to finance purchases on real estate transactions.
Okay, so for me personally, you always got a rich family member. That was my uncle, right? Or you bundle family members' money together, and that could be another way. Ask some friends, or there's a lot of investors out there that have money. So for me, it was just like, wow, there's money everywhere. It's just like how do I get them to give me the money? So for example, I just use common sense. So if let's say I use something easier, like an iPhone or something. If an iPhone's $1,000 and I got it for $500, would someone give me $600 for it? Yeah. Why wouldn't they do the same thing for a house?
Hmm.
So it's kind of like that. And then the next question, like there's a lot of questions that we keep coming up with, and it makes us worry. But I would say go out there and ask yourself because I don't know. I always say people I don't know much. I need to ask people. So people will say, why would they sell you $100,000 property for 80,000 or 70,000? My answer is I don't know. I really don't know. I go out there and I stumbled upon people, and then I asked them too because I'm curious too. I'm like, hey, excuse me, this house is worth 100,000, right? And they say, yeah, I do, I know. And my neighbor sold for 110, 105. I said, so why would you sell it to me for 75 or 80? And then they will tell you their reason. They're like, well, I got to get out now. I got to move, right? And it's kind of like, so the thing is kind of like I would say is be open to explore, have fun with it, you know, don't make it so like a math equation, or I mean, it's hard to believe, but after I've done so many, like all I could do is just tell you the possibilities. I can't tell you, if you don't believe, one thing I can tell you for sure is if you don't believe you can do it, you can't do it
Right.
because you're not even going to start. For me, obviously, you can see I was naive, gullible, and I believed. I went out there and I did it over and over, and it's been 20 years, still doing it.
Yeah, like you know what it kind of reminds me of, and I give the analogy of like, why someone would be willing to like sell a property far less than what it would be hypothetically worth. It's the
Right.
same analogy I used to give. Like everyone used to collect Pokemon cards, right?
Yeah.
Everybody used to collect Pokemon cards. And the thrill of collecting Pokemon cards was, in my opinion, for me, was the value of trading, right? Like, hey man, I have a Charizard. Everyone knew that the Charizard was like the most like sought out card, worth probably the most, right? But some people, including myself, like you can trade a Charizard for, I don't know, like a Pikachu, right? Because someone really likes a Pikachu, right? They might not know the intrinsic value of a Charizard, right? But it's that's part of negotiating, right? Like it's like the ebbs and flows of dealing, right? Or finding a good deal, right? So
One
I
thing I
kind
want to
of
point
put it
out
in
about,
that. Yeah,
one thing I want to point out about negotiating.
yeah,
Negotiating to a lot of people is haggling, like getting a cheap price. That's not what negotiation is.
yeah.
Negotiation is finding a win-win solution. Meaning, like if the person like the Pikachu, you have it, and you want the Charizard, they have it. It's a fair trade. It's not, yo, that Charizard is worth 10x more than Pikachu. Let me trade him. That's not how we think. We
Right.
think, I like the Charizard. I'll trade you for Pikachu. And someone else might say, yo, dude, don't do it. And he's like, well, you got the Pikachu. I'll trade you first. Someone in the family usually. No, I don't have the Pikachu. Well, then he does. I'm gonna trade him. I mean, that's what I want.
Yeah,
That's all it is, dude.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, I think the values are all are like kind of up to the person as well, and it obviously changes because now you're talking about from Pikachu to houses that obviously makes a big difference in pricing. But I guess that's kind of the point that I was trying to make here. Overall, though, I think the lessons that we can learn is that from your experience, right? You were going out there, you're putting yourself out there, you were obviously negotiating, and you brought some kind of value to your uncle, right? That he didn't believe that you could do, right? You did your due diligence by reading all
Yep.
these books, but then also you took action, right? You took action on them. So kudos to you, man. And I'm hoping that this encourages a lot of our listeners as
Let
well.
me share with you another cool thing too. So
Sure.
this is what I do with my students too, right? So first I started wholesaling to him because I needed money.
Okay.
Then I started
Well,
finding new.
Dave, hold on a second. So wholesaling, let's explain what wholesaling
Oh
is
man.
just for our
Man.
audience.
Okay,
Yeah.
so found a deal, right? I put it under contract for a certain price, and I went to my uncle. Let's say, for example, that deal I told you, I could have wholesaled that property to my uncle. He was willing to pay 75. I got it for 46. I could have made the spread because I made that profit, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So I first start off just, putting something under contract, and then I sold it for a high value where the buyer agrees to it because they know they still got a good deal, right? That's wholesaling. So I first started wholesaling, and then next thing you know, as I found more and more deals, I learned a lot from my uncle about renovation. And then from there to the point where I know renovation, I could find a deal. I became a realtor to sell the deal. I learned every skill. I learned how to stage it. I bought my own furniture. And at one point now he's just like, hey, I got the money. How about you just invest? You're better than me. And so now my point is this: I started with no money. And now the person with all the money is giving me all their money to invest because I'm better than them. So, like, the most important thing is being out there and going on the journey, you know, and learning that skill. The skill is the most valuable, right?
Hmm.
Don't forget that because a lot of time people focusing on money. you're not gonna develop the skill if you keep focusing on money. It could be a driver to some point, but if you can appreciate the journey, appreciate the relationships that you make, right? It can go a long way because
Sure.
what I became in the first year, second year, it transformed me. I made my first seven figures in 1 year. I'm a different person already.
Yeah, yeah. That's so awesome to hear. So, I mean, to wrap things up for our listeners, where can our listeners find you, follow you, reach out to you?
Um, real real my Gmail is realestateasian@gmail.com, ASIAN. Um, yeah, I mean, you got any questions about Philadelphia? That's usually what I focus on right now, Philadelphia. A lot of people from California, out of state, have reached out to me, and I help them get started on investing in their first 10 properties. Usually residential or multifamilies, but mostly residential is what I've been doing for the last decade, helping people get started because
Mhm.
I realized that just like you, once you get started, you'll figure it out. The starting part is the scariest, it's the hardest, it's the most hand holding. And I have all the resources and the experience, and I keep it simple. So that's that's what I do.
And full disclosure, that you offer a coaching platform for students or some kind of
I don't
mentoring, right?
anymore. That's what
Okay,
I did.
okay,
I
okay,
don't anymore. I
okay,
just
okay,
I just I just meet people.
okay,
I mean, I now do more like joint venture partnerships because
okay.
coach can, because some people are so scared that they may or may not take action. But I do a lot of joint venture partnerships where I'm teaching people and making money with them, or they're investing in me, something like that, because I need to make sure that they're actually taking action. Because a lot of times people like to learn and then they get into the habit of just learning and they don't take action. That's not what I'm about. I need to see results and I want to see people grow from through the process. Otherwise, I feel like I'm wasting my time. And with twins and everything, I'm not looking to waste any more time. I want
Sure.
to make change in people's lives. That's what I enjoy.
So what would be like an ideal person that would be perfect fit for you if they reached out to you? Like, what are you looking for?
I think someone that has a stable job, because I realize that if you don't have a stable job, then you have to learn how to wholesale, you know? So
Yeah.
so then I gotta teach you how to wholesale but I've trained wholesalers too. It just takes longer because you need to be built a certain way, like knocking on doors, cold calling.
Mhm.
It's a lot of learning. I think someone have a stable job, like a corporate job, that's looking to get started investing, buying their first 10 properties. Someone that has decent credit, because it tells me a lot about their discipline, right? Someone more disciplined and just willing to take that leap to build that, generational wealth or build up their retirement. I think that's easier for me. It doesn't
Okay,
take.
cool. And again, full disclosure, like I know a couple of these guys that you've been teaching and coaching, and if they want to get into wholesale, I know that you're very good at it, by the way. So yeah.
Thank
Um,
you.
but yeah, Dave, I appreciate the time, and I appreciate you encouraging me in so many ways, even today, man. So the podcast wouldn't have been up as quickly as it would have had you not pushed me. So thank you so much.
Hey man, I hope it was helpful. Like I'm just shooting it straight. I just like to help people because at the end of the day, I know what it's like to make mistakes, lots of them. So, you know, save people time. I'm getting old and I want people to get rich young.
I gotcha. Well, brother, thank you so much.
All right, man. Have a blessed day.
John Lee Real Estate, find you the best rate. All throughout Philly, like Schuylkill Expressway. Talking to people who out of the 215, even the 267, who always helping, like, oh, no time for no student.